Okay, and so now I'm going to talk about some of the features of ASL poetry. So, poetry traditionally, spoken poetry traditionally relies upon rhyme and meter, uh, alliteration, onomatopoeia, all of these sound-based things, spoken things. So what does this mean for poetry that is not spoken? What does it mean for ASL? Well, one of the things that I think is really important to just go through is that ASL poetry has these things. They just manifested differently. So what you have, and the best way to do this is to watch an ASL poem and then point out the things that are happening in that poem that represent the the parallels between spoken. But I will just go over the ways in general that what you have are corresponding with ASL. So alliteration, basically alliteration is done through similar hand shapes. So two signs that have similar hand shapes can be sort of echoing each other. And the choice then would be deliberate on the part of the poet to put those similar hand shapes together and make a kind of alliteration in that way. Um, with regard to rhyme, you will have sort of a path of movement that will be similar. So, I might have heaven and I might have earth, and these kind of things are parallel to each other, heaven, earth, and the path that I use to talk about them is the same. So that would be a form of rhyming. Meter has to do with holds. When you're doing signing, the way the duration that you hold a sign can represent meter. So I might say something like, "I feel strong." This would be a fast. I feel strong. You might have something. I feel strong, and the pacing of that and the way it's held is conveying different meaning. Also, there can be a symbolic use of space. The thing that comes to mind when I think of this is after 9/11, the terrorist attack of 9/11, I saw a sign combination which I thought was really interesting, which was this. Let's see if I can get it all in the frame. Okay. Okay, so that's interesting on many levels. You have simultaneous meaning. I mean, having to translate that into English is translating motion into linear. So you would have to fill in words for what is being conveyed automatically and simultaneously through the visual, which is something that scholars call visual vernacular. And I can talk more about that. But in terms of symbolic use of space in this instance, the plane is huge and the towers are small, and it hits it like that. And so the symbolic means the bigness of the plane and the smallness of the towers is the overwhelming force of the terrorism. So that could be a symbolic use of size, and I guess also this could manifest through space as well. Um, tone comes through facial expressions in the heaven and earth poem that you guys have at one point at the end. The voice, the person voicing, you can hear the tears in their throat, in the voice. And in the signer, you can see it. She's about to cry, her eyes and her lips. And these are indicating that she's about to cry, and the tone is the same, but it's echoed visually instead of auditorily or with sound. Um, there can also be onomatopoeia, and I was racking my brain trying to come up with a good example of this. Um, the thing that I did come up with would be something sort of like, a frog goes ribbit, and in sign it would be sort of like, and this is, I mean that's the same. That was the best example I could come up with. Irony. Sometimes what you have here is like when the facial expression and the sign don't match. So I could be signing happy. This is a sign for happy. I could be going. So, this is sort of an irony. I'm supposed to be smiling while I sign happy. Interestingly, in ASL, that would mean not happy. But it could also represent irony. Drama, this is self-explanatory, just the emotion and the physicality of drama can come through. And then also elegance. ASL poets pride themselves on economy of motion. One of the things that comes to mind when I think of this is, for example, in English you have the sign for, you have the words for, fly and then fly overnight. In ASL, this is fly, and then the sign for night and overnight, right? But instead of going fly overnight, often in ASL, what you will see is fly overnight, right? So this is, again, the simultaneous meaning, but also economy of motion. The next thing to talk about is a bigger topic, and it deals with the functions of ASL poetry, and that is the visual vernacular.